So good morning, everyone. Bore da. I'm following on from Dewi, also going to talk about an emotional wellbeing project in primary care. I'm a clinical service manager in CAMS, and this project really is all about a partnership that we initially created with one GP cluster in North Denbighshire. Just to set a little bit of the context, well, I'm sure most people here will know that over the past few years, we really have seen increasing concern about the emotional health of children and young people. So numbers are, averaging 1 in 9, 1 in 10 now experiencing a mental disorder, which is, if you look at any average size classroom, that's roughly 3 children from an average size classroom. So it's really, really concerning. We also know that children and young people with good emotional well-being generally fare better, and those that do experience adversity in childhood that's not addressed, potentially then experiencing lower levels of health and well-being across the lifespan. So, for us, whilst we, absolutely need specialist services to provide evidence-based treatment for children and young people who are experiencing a mental health disorder, the general consensus now is that we really need to improve our ability across the system to really recognise and respond quickly to address emotional wellbeing concerns in our children and young people sooner. And that's really across the levels of need. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the model. The core strands are rooted in early detection and early intervention for children and young people who present in primary care. We're not suggesting that primary care is the answer to all emotional well-being issues in children and young people. We really are of the mind that actually we need to improve capacity across the system. But we do know that families use primary care and present to primary care when they're in need of help and support. So we felt it was important to look at a model to build capacity there. So moving on, the project aims really are about focusing on enhancing early detection, again, whatever level of need, and recognising the right type of support needed in collaboration with the families, children, young people, carers who are seeking support, and then helping them to access it in a timely way. Like I said, it's not about delivering it all in primary care. There's some fantastic services in our local communities. There's some fantastic resilience and targeted programmes in schools. And many families, with the right support and the right information, can start to make changes themselves that can really improve well-being. So this is really about ensuring that we give people the tools and the information and actually also some additionality to address unmet need or barriers that families have in accessing the support that's available. We thought about what strategies might help us to achieve these aims and thought that it was really important to tackle this from a building capacity perspective, building capability perspective. So we really wanted to increase the information available to the whole primary care team so that they can respond to families in the course of their day-to-day clinics. We didn't want to create a wholly separate situation in this project because, we know that emotional well-being and physical well-being are so closely linked. And actually, we felt it would be useful to be able to share skills that people might be able to use in other areas of practice. So, at the centre of the model, we've got a family wellbeing practitioner or family wellbeing practitioners now. None of them actually look like that, and they'll be really cross with me for using that picture. And the family wellbeing practitioner is there to support both the primary care team and families that access the service. They're a specialist nurse with expertise in child and adolescent mental health, but also additional expertise in consultation, early intervention and prevention strategies. They're aligned with one GP cluster, and that's very intentional in that you know, we feel it's important that they're able to get to know their communities and their cluster, and all the assets that are available within that local community to help children, young people and families. But they are employed by the Health Board, and they are aligned with a CAMS service. And they're also supervised by a CAMS service, really to make sure that they maintain a strong connection with the evidence base. They have a professional network, and they're really linked in with the broader system of early intervention schemes, projects, programmes, in addition to specialist services. The resource for the primary care team is really about offering training, consultation, and this is on early help resources, higher risk mental health concerns, and any other related subject areas to meet the individual needs of the cluster. And that becomes apparent over time. They also accept direct referrals from the primary care teams through EMIS. So the cluster, the GPs, the primary care team are really at the forefront of decision making about how they use the resource available when they're looking at consultation. For families, they'll offer perhaps a single consultation or up to 4 sessions of extended consultation or brief intervention. And this can be the more traditional sort of emotional well-being approaches like brief CBT strategies or solution-focused approaches. But they're also able to offer psychoeducation, problem-solving skills. You know, they might be helping a family with relational issues within that family. They're able to deliver skills training to increase resilience or confidence, or really advising on positive wellbeing strategies around sleep, diet, the dreaded screen time even, and exercise. As we know, it can be challenging for young people to make the right wellbeing choices, and it's also challenging, and I can say this as a parent myself, as a parent to support our children to make better choices. So yeah, it's looking at it from a holistic perspective. And ultimately, it's about making sure that all families have a plan. Far too often we hear about families, especially those in the middle range of need, who end up falling between services and not having their needs met. So it's bridging as well. So we really wanted to use systems that were familiar within primary care so that we could really focus on that integration agenda. And we worked with a fantastic practice manager in North Denbighshire who came up with the idea, like with other presentations, about building a template in EMIS, which was the system predominantly used by that cluster. I'm terrible with technology, and so please don't ask me any detailed questions about this. But really it starts at the GP consultation. So they input key information into the template, and actually what that can do is signpost them to specific intervention related information, signposting, advice, all sorts of resources that help to make the decision. Okie doke. So it leads us really along the path of sort of extending a needs-led framework across the level of needs, really. And so the template supports decision making by doing a number of things. So it improves access to self-help and signposting information for those who might present, you know, with lower levels of need or risk. And when I talk about risk, I also talk about risk of unmet need. So perhaps a family might present and the GP or primary care clinician might think, well, actually, you know, information will be enough, or there's a service out there, perhaps for bereavement, that actually that family can access, and giving them the information will be enough. So we want to support the primary care team to have the ability to do that when they see people. We then move up to the option for referral for a specialist consultation. So when the GP sees a family who they think perhaps doesn't need a CAMHS referral, but may not be able to access self-help and services in a way that another family might do, they might refer the family for a specialist consultation with the GP, with the family wellbeing practitioner. So it might just be that they feel that it would be good for the family wellbeing practitioner to do a bit more assessment with the family and get a better understanding of the needs, or it might be that they feel they might need a short spell of support from that targeted support from that family wellbeing practitioner. We also have a bridge between the two. So if somebody's had self-help and signposting advice, but that hasn't worked, they can then self-refer to the family wellbeing practitioner within 6 months. We then move on to the higher level of needs. So we did some training around high-level presentations to support the primary care team to recognise and respond to these. And the template also contains additional risk assessment information, screening tools, and some guidance really to complete referrals to CAMHS if that's needed. And again, we have a bridge here between those who see the family wellbeing practitioner, but whose levels of needs perhaps increase or are higher than originally thought, and they can be discussed with the CAMHS team. So I guess we're on to, you know, did we achieve what we aimed to set out? Well, you know, we delivered a lot of different evaluations in order to tell us this. So if we started with satisfaction questionnaires from the primary care team, patients, clinical effectiveness tools. We reviewed referral type and referral patterns between primary care and CAMHS, and these were some of the key findings that we found that we want to highlight. So there was a high uptake in the training and positive responses to the training delivered. So 100% of the questionnaires respondents, and actually I think 80 odd percent of questionnaires were responded to. I know we had about 86 returns. Told us that they benefited from the training, and the key areas that they highlighted were risk assessment, screening, better awareness of what information and services could be accessed, and a better understanding of patient experience. In relation to the early intervention, so enhancing that early intervention offer, well, all the practices have the EMIS template installed and in use. And in a year of practice, the family wellbeing practitioner was able to offer support to around 350 families, varied support based on what I talked about before. CAMHS told us from a patient safety perspective that there was a really notable increase in the information in the referrals that they had from the pilot site, which helped to highlight young people needing urgent or more specific care pathways quickly. And the number of referrals not considered appropriate prior to the pilot had really dropped after the pilot. So although not high in number, some families did move between levels of need following assessment. So there's that additional safety net in there to stop families falling between services. And then efficient use of resources. This is an area I think we need to examine a little bit more. But what we have got is some softer feedback from GPs from the questionnaires that we delivered to them, which was that they felt that their workload in this area had reduced. They were certainly feeling that they had reduced numbers of repeat consultations from families who were reporting unmet need. And from the CAMHS perspective, we had a 39% reduction in CAMHS referrals from the pilot site after the 6 months post the model coming into practice. So we did a pre and post evaluation, which is really significant. when we think about wanting to increase access to specialist services for those who need it. In relation to patient satisfaction, we ask all who assess the FWP to complete an experience of service questionnaire, and it asks families to rate from 1 to 3 across a lot of domains. And as you'll see from there, from a snapshot that we took, mostly were scoring 3s, and when I say mostly, all were scoring 3s across the areas of care delivery. And we keep an eye on the surveys going forward, and this is consistent. In relation to clinical effectiveness, when we looked at the mean change in family to their goals pre and post intervention, again, we were seeing that they were making really good progress towards their goals within the time that they were seeing the family wellbeing practitioner. And again, this is sustained. And really, I think you probably can't explain any better than service users' words, really, which can be seen in some of those comment boxes. So where are we now? So, well, over the past, we started off in North Denbighshire, and over the past 10 months, we have recruited an additional 3 family wellbeing practitioners for our other clusters in central area. The funding for this has come from the Health Board after the successful evaluation of our initial pilots, which has been going on over the past couple of years. And those new family wellbeing practitioners have delivered awareness training in, I think, 16 of the 27 surgeries and growing. And we will look to be implementing now in the run-up to Christmas in those surgeries. Over the next 12 months, we're looking at implementing in the others in central area, but there is also funding to expand the service across North Wales. So we're hoping to have more of a picture looking like this, really. We don't think it's the final model necessarily. The early intervention and prevention landscape is changing all the time, and we're going to need to adapt to that. And we're also really prepared to adapt from the information that we learn through further evaluation as we go along, because we know that with one pilot we can see some excellent results, so we want to make sure that this is sustained across. So we will be continuing with the evaluation that we started in the first pilot, but also looking a little bit more at the resource effectiveness this time. And so I think that probably brings it to a close, other than to just mention some Bevan experience, really. And I can't finish off the presentation without sharing a picture of the real team, who have been absolutely fantastic in moving this project forward during this really challenging time over COVID, where everybody's priorities are everywhere. They've really stuck at it, and I think that's why we're where we're at, despite starting this process of scaling up at the beginning of May. Some words to describe my experience around team working, partnership. It's been an absolute pleasure working with our colleagues in primary care. And from Bevan, I think it's really to support practically, but also inspire a spirit of enthusiasm, belief, and really that determination that actually progress can be made and barriers can be overcome. So that's the end of my presentation. I think the other word, like we all know, has been a great feature over the last 12 months is you're on mute, and that's where I'm going to mute myself before anybody else does. So thank you for listening.